Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Aura News broadcast. I'm Daniel Cook, your host for the English News Edition, in which we have prepared a translated version of today's top news stories. The Ministry of Finance has submitted a special report to Parliament listing the reasons why the expected revenue did not materialize in the first half of the year. The ministry admits that the revenue plan for this year was unrealistic and listed the decrease in revenue from excise as well as fictitious reporting of salaries as other reasons. The document from the ministry explains about 65.8% of the total revenue in the budget consists in revenue from taxes and customs. These revenues have been reduced by 13.4 billion lek. It is noted that apart from the revenue from income and tax customs, all other items are falling short, says the document. The report goes on to explain why these other elements of state revenue have not been reaching expectations. Factor number one is the overly optimistic forecast of revenue. During the planning of the income for 2015, we did not sufficiently consider the unrealized taxes and customs for the months of November and December of 2014, the report notes. Economic increase that is lower than the expectations is listed as the second factor. The report states that this failure to reach expectations led to a reduction of revenue by 3 billion lek compared to the forecast. A third reason is the reduction in revenue from excise duties, even though the excise duties on cigarettes were increased in 2014 and 2015. The Ministry of Finance admits that the increase of revenue from fuel was much smaller than predicted. The report states that personal income levels have fallen because of fictitious declarations of employees' salaries, pointing out the prevalence of evasion among big businesses. The Ministry of Finance says that the pace of revenue collection in August has improved somewhat, although taxes and customs are still a problem. The data shows that during the first 8 months of this year, the total revenue amounted to 248.1 billion lek, a growth of 4.9% compared to the same period a year ago. What worries the ministry is that the rate of revenue growth from taxes and customs is slow, which are two major contributors to the state budget. Over a period of 8 months, 167.8 billion lek was gathered from the tax and customs directories, a modest increase of only 2.2% compared to the same period a year ago. However, this is still 18.4 billion lek less than the initial plan. The low collection of value-added tax, excise tax, personal income tax, and national taxes all had a negative effect on this measurement. The government has submitted a normative act for reviewing the budget to the Parliament, which will reduce both revenues and costs by over 16 billion lek. The hope of the government is that the operation against informality will increase the revenue by $330 million. The foreign investors in Albania have expressed their support for the government's operation against informality. In a press release, the Foreign Investors Association said that this is a most welcome step. They believe that an effective fight against informality is one of the best ways to prevent further increase of taxes, which would hamper economic growth. According to the association, informal economy is a real challenge for Albania and one of the main obstacles in the business environment. The presence of informal economy and the tax procedures are the top obstacles facing business community in Albania, states the Association of Foreign Investors. Today's parliamentary session was called in order to discuss the budget review, but the focus quickly shifted to subjects that were not included in the Parliament's agenda. Recent issues like drug trafficking and the CEZ-DIA agreement quickly became the subject of verbal warfare between the majority and the opposition. Sali Berisha spoke out against the agreement, calling it a corrupted scheme and a flagrant violation of the public interest. Erion Brace turned the blame back on Berisha, blaming him and the former Minister of Finance of being responsible for the scheme in the first place. Debates on drug trafficking also took a front-row seat in today's session, with the Interior Minister Saimir Tahiri declaring that the government is fighting hard against drugs and that there are 8 times fewer marijuana plots than there were during the previous governance. The Democratic MP Astrid Patosi made the claim that the Interior Ministry the Interior Minister is accused of connection to organized crime more than any other Interior Minister. At today's meeting of the Democratic Party, the chairman, Lulzim Basha, gave warning that no one will be safe from the process of decriminalization. Mr. Basha declared that Albania is going through rough times because of the economic and social situation in the country. He remarked, "The Albanian economy is in difficult days. Hundreds of jobs are being closed every day." Rama and Meta passed the normative act in secrecy by decreasing expenditures. Albania was listed among the EU countries that have decreased their salaries and pensions. Basha issued a call for all incriminated officials to resign and asked the government to pass the decriminalization law as soon as possible, which will remove people with a criminal past from all public offices. He said that the time to take action has come and the Democratic Party will represent the citizens. Mr. Basha accused the government of creating huge economic difficulty because of the corruption in their ranks. He said that the operation against informality that the government began in October is nothing but a fraudulent scheme. The Democratic chairman announced that he will meet with the citizens all around Albania to hear their voices and their problems in order to draft a platform that will save the country from this crisis. The Kosovar President Atifete Jahjaga visited Tirana today at the invitation of President Nishani. She met with many of Albania's state leaders in order to discuss the need for intensifying economic and cultural cooperation. President Nishani expressed Albania's support for the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia, a process that he says is giving a new spirit to the region. He praised the Kosovar parliament for creating a special court and said that no one can stain the heroic war of the KLA. Referring to regional development, President Nishani expressed his concern about the situation of the Albanians in the Preševo Valley. "We continue to be concerned about their situation," he said. "I have expressed my concerns to the Serbian Prime Minister as well, and I received a promise that the Serbian side will be committed to this issue." Both presidents supported the agreement reached in Brussels concerning the dialogue, and said that it does not violate the sovereignty of Kosovo. The Kosovar president also met with the Assembly Speaker Ilir Meta, with whom she spoke about the inter-country relations. Meta and Jahjaga agreed on increasing trade and economic exchange. Next, the Kosovar leader met with Prime Minister Rama and agreed to intensify cooperation in health, education, and trade. According to the EU, Albania has the highest number of unaccompanied minor immigrants in the European countries. Recent data from the European Union indicates that Albania now has the highest number of asylum seekers in the Western Balkans, and that unaccompanied minors make up a large percentage of this number. These minors are at risk of being exploited or even trafficked, which is a very concerning problem for both Albania and the EU. The head of the EU delegation in Albania declares that the challenges for this country are great, and they will require a great deal of hard work. The Vice Minister of Interior, Elona Gjebreja, says that there have been 91 cases of unaccompanied Albanian minors in the EU countries in the past 6 months. She says that 76 out of these have been returned home, and that they are being cared for by the social services. She made this announcement at a regional meeting on the immigration of unaccompanied minors, where policies for the returned asylum seekers were also discussed. The Interior Minister is drafting an emergency plan for the issue of minors, and the EU will help the Western Balkan countries with their programs for the returned asylum seekers, with a fund of €8 million. That concludes our news for this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please join us again at the same time tomorrow for more translated news in English. Thanks, and have a great night.